We begin today the Gemara on Daf Vav Amud Aleph, 3 lines down from the top of the Yomud. The Gemara before brought that there's a machlokes between Shmuel and Rabba Vahu regarding judging in money matters, whether if you judge less than with 3 judges, b'di'eved, or will the judgment be accepted? Will it take effect? So the Gemara before brought that Shmuel said, even though you're supposed to have 3 judges, but even if you judge only with 2, and as we'll see from the continuation of the Gemara, that means really even only with 1, the judgment will be in effect. Shmuel called it a bezdin chotzuf. It's an audacious bezdin. That's the word, I think, yeah? Because they're not following the takanas chachamim that said it should be 3. However, Rabba Vo paskins like Rab Shimon ben Gamliel that says that by a judgment of din imaminus you must have 3. Less than 3, if it's only 2, then the people that are accepting this judgment can say, forget it, we're not interested. It must be dafka 3. So to bring back the statement that Rabba Vo himself said, Amar Rabba Vo, Shnayim shadonu din imaminus, 2 that are judging in money matters, l'divri hakoil, everybody agrees, ein dinayim din. What they judge is not a din. The ones that accepted this din can back out from this. Eis fe Rabba Rabba Vo, Rabba asked Rabba Vo from what it says in the Braise, dones adin, or maybe this is actually a Mishnah. This is in B'chayres. That's a Mishnah in B'chayres. Dones adin, one that judged a judgment, and v'zika is tachayev, and he made a mistake. The one that's supposed to be obligated to pay, he said no, that he's zakai, that he's potter to pay. Or v'chiyev is a zakai, or the one that's obligated to pay, so he was mechayev, someone that should not be chayev to pay, he was really zakai. Or times sator, something that should be toir, he paskened wrong and to say that it's tameh, or the opposite, tir is satameh, something that should be toir, he was metame. So masha asa asi, the psak din that he paskened remains in effect, it doesn't go back. But umishalami beisai, he's going to be responsible, though, for the mistake that he made. The judge, when he made this mistake, he's going to be responsible for this. He has to pay from his house to compensate for whoever paid when he wasn't supposed to pay. So what do we see over here in this Braisa? It says, Donas Adin. We're talking about one person. And Rashi says, what one person are we talking about? Not necessarily a person that's a mumche. So here Rashi is bavaroning a question that on Daf Hey, before the Gemara said that everybody agrees that if you have a yochid, which is a mumche, if he's an expert in dinei mamanis, so then everybody agrees that a yochid mumche could paskin. The whole argument and the whole discussion here between Shmuel and Rabba Vo is when 1 or 2 people paskin dinei mamanis and he's not a mumche. So Rashi says when you look over there in the sefer of that Mishnah, it's clear that it's not talking about a mumche. And still it says danas adim v'zikas as a chayv and so on. So it says that the din takes place. So we see that even one person can paskin. So how does Rabba Vo say that it must be 3? And l'kulam, everybody agrees it must be 3. And says the Gemara Acha b'maya skinon, in that Mishnah, what is it talking about? The kiblu alayu, the ones, the balidinim, they accepted. They said we accept this person to judge us. So in such a case, even Rabba Vo will agree that one can judge. But if they accepted him, so then why if they made if he that is made a mistake, will he have to be responsible to pay from his house for the mistake? Then we learned before, and we learned in the previous daf, that if they accept him as a judge, and they said, you paskin for us, whatever it's going to be, we accept what you're going to paskin. So then what happens is, if he makes a mistake, it won't be his responsibility. They accept it. Says the Gemara, because over here, the Amrulei, they only accepted and they said, Dainis lon din teire. We accept you to paskin for us a din teire. But they did not accept to take his psak din, regardless of what it will be. They just turned to him and said, would you take care of this din teire for us? In such a case, if he makes a mistake, he'll be responsible. Okay, so but now here, the Gemara will discuss what exactly is the mistake we're talking about that this judge made. Rav Safra asks Rabba about this Mishnah. What's the mistake that he made over here that we say that he paskin wrong, the judgment remains in effect, but the dayan is responsible to pay? The Mishnah is the case that there's a clear Mishnah that he paskined not like this Mishnah. Now here it says Dvar Mishnah in the Gemara, but it refers also if it's a clear halach and Shulchan Aruch that nobody argues about, and he went and paskined against the halach and Shulchan Aruch. Then you're going to say that the psak din remains in effect. Or others are Mishnah. When you paskin against a clear Mishnah, chayzer. So then the whole psak din goes back. You have to give back the money. There's no why is the judge paying for this? The person that paid, so he has to get back his money, not the judge should pay for this mistake. And says the Gemara, Ella, the case that this Mishnah is speaking about is the Ta b'shikol adas. That the mistake he made was in shikol adas, in knowing how to resolve a situation where there's a machlokes about this. There's a difference of opinions about this. It's not a clear Mishnah where there's one opinion. Heichidami, what does that mean? What situation is this? Heichidami b'shikol adas. What is this that a person has to have the right knowledge or to know how to resolve in a case where there's actually a machlokes? Rav Papa says, Kagain, Terei Tanoi, a case where there are two Tanoim that argue about this case, or Terei Miroi, or two Amiroim that argue about the Pligi, that argue about this, a Hadadi, one another, and and it wasn't resolved. There was never the conclusion about this. The halacha was never accepted like one or like the other. So now you have two opinions. So really, either way you paskin, it's really correct. So now, then what was the issue with the way this judge paskind? Because v'sugyan the alma aliba dechad minayu. Because most dayanim follow one opinion. That's what Rashi says. Sugya the alma hiluch dina. The most people paskin like one opinion, and va'azaliyu va'avid kiyedach. And he went and accepted the other opinion, different than with the way most dayanim paskin. Hainu shikol adas. This is a case where there's two opinions about this. There's no actual psak din lahalacha about this, but nevertheless he should have followed the majority the way most judges paskin. So in such a case, if the psak din itself remains in effect, if someone paid, so then you can't take that money back. The way it's mashma from what Rashi says over here is the reason is because in such a case you can't tell him, hey, give back the money. It turns out that the psak din was a mistake. You can't do that. Why not? Because the halacha is a mitzvah mechaveri olav araya, and in this case, the money that he got, you can't say that the money that he's holding on to now is not his, because there's another opinion that says that the money is his. So there's two opinions. It wasn't ever really paskin about this. So once the psak din was given like that opinion, the one that got the money can keep it, can't take it away from him. But on the other hand, the dayan should have made more of an investigation about this. He should have known that most dayanim paskin differently. It's atos b'shikol adas. So if they didn't accept him fully and properly, that they're going to accept his psak din no matter what, it's going to be his responsibility to reimburse the one that paid when he really shouldn't have paid. Shall we say that the machlokes between Shmuel and Rabavo, whether regarding din mamonis, when you're using one judge or two judges, which is not an expert, could it be a psak din or not? So the Braise says bitzua. If you're doing bitzua means when it's a pshara. The dayanim are being used to make a compromise. B'shloisha. So you have to have three judges to make this compromise. Divrei Rab Meir, that's Rab Meir's opinion. So obviously, what we're talking about over here is not a kind of compromise where two people can come to an agreement themselves for some compromise. Then you don't need the judges for that. We're talking about a case where two people cannot come to a compromise themselves. They're not agreeing, and they're turning to judges, to dayanim, that they should make the compromise between them, and they'll accept whatever the judges come up with. So in such a case, Rab Meir says that it only will be in effect if it's done with three. However, Chachamim say pshara b'yachid, to make a pshara between people that even one person can do. Now, so why is the Gemara thinking that this is relevant to what we're talking about? Till here, we're talking about a judge that's paskening a din and din mamonis, not with the compromise. He's paskening me'ikra din, what the halach is. Now, Savrua, those that brought this Braise and wanted to connect it to the machlokes of Shmuel and Rabavo, so they thought the Kula Alma, everybody agrees that makshinon pshara ledin. We compare the case where the Bezdin is making a compromise to the case where the Bezdin is paskening a din. And Rashi here brings the pasuk that the Gemara is going to bring on Amud Beis, that it says in mishpat utstaka, when it speaks about the two ways that the Bezdin is used, either for mishpat, either for a judgment, not a compromise, and then staka. Staka is a compromise. So on the pasuk it says that this is by David HaMelech, it says it together. So we see that we compare the two. So if we compare the two, so then I can say, my lav b'hakim miflagi, that the argument here between Rav Meir and Chachamim is the argument that we brought before. The Mar Savar, the B'shloisha, Chachamim hold, or Rav Meir rather holds, that for every judgment, whether it's a compromise or a regular judgment, you have to have three. Mar Savar, Chachamim hold, din b'shnayim, that when you have a judgment, it can be with two, or with one even. You don't have to have three. Even if you paskin with one or two, even though you're not following the Chachamim instituted, but you can paskin with one or two. Says the Gemara loy, that's not the explanation of the machlekes here in this braise. The kula alma, everybody agrees, din b'shloisha. When you're paskening a din, so then by din mamonis you have to have three. Now the argument between Rav Meir and Chachamim is as follows: The Mar Savar Makshinon Pshara Ledin. So according to Rab Meir, we compare when the Bezdin is making a compromise to when they're paskening a din, and you always have to have 3. Mar Savar, but according to the Chachamim, we don't compare when Bezdin makes a compromise to when Bezdin is paskening a din. If it's a compromise, then it's enough to have 1. Okay, so this is the answer of the Gemara to explain according to Rabbi Vo. According to Rabbi Vo, we could say that everybody agrees to his opinion that by dinei mamanis, if you're paskening a din, you must have 3. But by a pshara, that's where they have a machlekes. But according to Shmuel, you're going to have to actually say that his opinion is dependent on this machlekes Tanaim over here. That's what Taisa says. Okay, so now the Gemara will continue here to focus on this subject of Bezdin that's being used to make a compromise between the Bali Dinim. Leime, shall we say, Tlose Tanoi B'Pshara. That based on what we saw here in this brisa that we just quoted, and then there was a brisa at the end of Hayamid Beis that the Gemara brought as well. So now it comes out that it seems to be 3 opinions regarding when you're using a Bezdin to make a Pshara, how many people does the Bezdin have to be? The Mar Savar B'Shloisha, one opinion as we saw here, which is Rab Meir, he says 3. Omar Savar B'Shnayim. Then the brisa on the end of Hayamid Beis, which was Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, there it said that Pshara is with 2. Omar Savar, and then the Chachamim over here say B'Yochid, that a Pshara could be just with 1 person that makes the Pshara, 1 dayan. So it seems like that there's 3 different opinions here. It says the Gemara no, it's not 3 opinions. The one that says that you should have 2 judges for the compromise, even 1 judge would be enough as well. The only reason he says you should have 2, in order that you should have witnesses that should be able to come and testify about the pshara that they made and that they accepted upon themselves. And so that's the only reason, but not for the actual pshara itself. You can even just use 1 person for a pshara. Rav Ashi said now, based on what we saw here, that Shema Mina, from here I could learn out, pshara ein tzricha kinyan. That when you make a pshara, when you have dayanim that are making a pshara for the Bali Dinim, the Bali Dinim do not have to make a kinyan that they are accepting upon themselves this pshara. Meaning like this, according to some Rishonim, if it's required to have a kinyan, what that would mean is before the Bezdin opens up the whole and to listen to the case and then to make the pshara, the Bali Dinim have to accept a kinyan chalipin that we are going to accept upon themselves any pshara that there will be. Or others say that after the Bezdin already comes up with the pshara, and now Bezdin wants them to actually accept the pshara. So you're going to have to make a kinyan to accept this pshara. So Rav Ashi says it's not necessary to have a kinyan when you make a pshara. If you're going to say you need a kinyan in order to accept this pshara, so the opinion that says that you need 3 for this pshara, lamali. Why do you need 3? To sagi betrei. Let it be enough with 2. As we said, you need 2, so there should be edim. And velikdamine. If you're saying anyways that you make a kinyan in order to accept upon yourself that you're going to follow through with what these 2 that you accepted upon yourself, the pshara that they're making, so you accept what they say and you make a kinyan. Once you make a kinyan, so then it takes effect. Why is it necessary to have a bezdin of 3? What happens when a person wants to? Rashi says, what happens if a person wants to give a gift to someone? Are you going to have a bezdin to give a gift? You don't need a bezdin for a gift. What's really happening by a pshara? A pshara basically means that the person that knows that he's owed $1,000 is accepting a pshara that'll take payment for 800 or 700, whatever it is. That's basically being meichel. You're being meichel. Part of the loan is it's a level of a gift. So if it's a gift, so then if you're saying that you're making a kinyan for this to accept this pshara, so then you don't need a bezdin. You were meichel. You're giving a matana by the kinyan. You're giving a matana. So what's the point of having a bezdin here? So the very fact that there is an opinion that says that you need 3, it means that you have to have an authority of a bezdin in order that when they paskin this pshara, it should be something that has taikif. It's something that you can't back out of, even without a kinyan. What?
It should be tiski b'chad.
Yeah, and a chanami, true. When the Gemara here says shnayim, the Gemara already said before, 1 or 2 is the same thing. The only point of having 2 is just for eidos. Okay, but the Gemara though concludes and says the Hilcha said the halacha nevertheless is that pshara tzricha kinyan, that although it is a pshara, and as we said, if it's a pshara, so then why would it say here that you should need 3? But if you're making a kinyan, so then what's the point of having a bezdin? You made a kinyan. It's like you're giving a gift. But nevertheless, the halacha is that even though it's a pshara, you still need a kinyan for this pshara. And Taisus over here says the reason why you need a kinyan for this is because it's not exactly the same like a gift. When you give a gift, you know exactly what you're giving. When you make a pshara, what happens if you make a pshara and then the other person comes and says, I didn't realize to what extent this pshara is going to be. I didn't realize that I'm going to have to compromise to such an extent, and he's going to say that, this pshara was a mistake. This is not the pshara that I was planning on giving. So that's why you have to have a kinyan that you're going to accept the pshara that this dayan or these balidinim, the three dayanim that is, whatever pshara they are going to make, that's what the person will accept, and he can't say afterwards that it's a mistake.
So why can't you have two in a kinyan?
So you have to have the koyach of a bezdin dafke, because. So that's part of it. I didn't repeat the Taisus' words accurately. You have to have three, because otherwise the person will come and say, only two, I can't trust a pshara. They made a pshara which is not a proper pshara. When you have three, which is a bezdin, and you have three that are judging, and now you're going with the majority opinion of three, here the person says, this is the opinion of a good pshara, dafka 3. So that's why you have to have dafka 3. The point of the kinyan is that, again, you have to have 3 for the authority of the bezdin, but you also have to have the kinyan. Tzrich a kinyan. Okay, there's a Taisus over here. Okay, let's look into the Taisus over here. Okay, but that's the maskana. This is the halacha. Whenever you make a pshara, even a dintayra, which is with a pshara, you have to have a kinyan for this in order for the balidinim to accept this pshara. Tanirabanan. So here we learned in a brayse. Now this brayse. See the entire Amud over here. This is all basically a continuation of one long brayse. There's a few breaks that the Gemara has in between here, in the middle of the brayse, but it's all one long brayse. And the brayse is going to discuss this concept of the balidinim that are accepting a pshara, meaning that they're going to a bezdin for a pshara. So in a brayse we learned kishem shadin b'shloisha, just like a judgment. When you're paskening al pidin, you have to have 3 for that. Kach bitzua b'shloisha. So too for a bitzua, which is a compromise of pshara, you also need 3. Nigmar adin. Now, once bezdin already pasken, the din is already done. They did not make a pshara, and bezdin already pasken who's zakai and who's chayev. Then yatar shoyel of tzaya. At that point, you can't anymore make a compromise because it was already paskened. Taisus over here actually discusses once bezdin already pasken, it's not practical to make a compromise anymore. The one that won the dintayra, why would he be interested in any compromise? So one of the pshatim is that what happens if even after you won the dintayra, the other party is a person that you know it's going to be very hard for you to get payment from him. You take it right and you won the dintayra, but you're still going to struggle to get what you want. So here you may still agree to make a compromise with him, but the Brayse is saying that after there was the Gemar Din, so then now Bezdin has to enforce the Psak Din, and there's no compromise after the Gemar Din. Okay, for the continuation of the Brayse, the Gemara brings a siman, because there's so many names of different Tanoim that discuss this Sarmash Bankash siman, which is regarding the names of all the Tanoim here. Okay, so the first is Rabbi Lazar, B'nai Shel Rabbi Yossi Galili Yomer. Asr Leftzaya. So he actually holds that you're not allowed to make a compromise. When people come for a dintayra, you have to paskin according to what the ikra din is, not a compromise. V'chola bitzeya. Furthermore, whoever, you have to paskin the ikra din, you can't make a compromise. V'chola bitzeya. If you make a compromise, hareza chayta, you're sinning. And v'chola mevarachas bitzeya. If you bless or you praise someone that makes a compromise when there is a really should be a psak din, hareza menayitz. It's not a praise, you actually menayitz. You're going against the Eibishter. This is the meaning of the pasuk. Baitseya beirech niyetz Hashem. So the way he's teaching this is, if you bless or praise someone, a bezdin that makes a compromise, niyetz Hashem, you're going against the Eibishter. The Eibishter gave a din, you have to pasken al pi din. Ella, so rather yikoy vadin esahar. The din will pierce through a mountain. You uproot a mountain, whatever it is, in order to pasken the din. Shenemar, the pasuk says, ki mishpat lilekimhu. Judgment is to the Eibishter, meaning the Eibishter gave mishpat and the Torah, and you have to follow what the Torah says. V'chein Moshe hayomer. When Moshe Rabbeinu paskened for the Yidden, Moshe Rabbeinu would say, Yikav adin esahar, let the din uproot or pierce through the mountain. Aval, however, Aaron was oyev shalom v'reidev shalom. Aaron HaKohen loved peace and chased after peace. And he brought compromise and he made peace between people. Shenem, as the pasuk says, Torah semes saisa b'fiyu, that there's Torah of truth in his mouth. and no iniquity was found in his lips. B'shalom u'b'misha halachiti, with peace and in a straight path he went with me. V'rabim heishiv mi'oven, and many he returned from sin. And this pasuk refers to Aaron HaKohen. As Rashi says in the next pasuk there, talks about a Kohen. And here, what this means is that it was Shalom and Mishra. He put people on a straight path. How? By making peace, which was a compromise. That was Aaron HaKohen. As it says in Mefarshim, this means that before according to Rabbi Lazar's opinion, this is before they came to judgment. So he made the compromise. If you're coming to a bezdin, so then you're not allowed to make a compromise. You must judge them. But over here, Aaron HaKohen, even before they came to judgment, he heard that there's an argument. He went to make peace between them. He ran to make peace before they're going to go to the bezdin. Then you can make a compromise. Okay, this is this Indian here. This difference between Moshe and Aaron is also brought. The Rebbe brings this in the Sikha as a source for what it says in Chassidus when you get to the difference between Moshe and Aaron. That Moshe Rabbeinu is the Sheshvina de Malka and Aaron is Sheshvina de Matronisa, meaning that in the connection between Yidden and the Eibishter, Moshe Rabbeinu brings the Torah from above to below, brings the Torah down, which means the Dinei Torah brings them as is Yikiv Adin Sahar. Aaron HaKohen is the one that helps Yidden get closer to the Eibishter from below, to elevate them. And therefore he brings Yidden to a point that they're able to see the goodness of the Torah on their level in a place where there's an argument between people, and you bring Shalom in their world that they can make a compromise. It's a whole different approach that Aaron HaKohen had. Rabbi Eliezer Aimer, now here the Gemara, or the Braisa, continues to discuss this pasuk of Beitzei Berech, even though it's not on the subject that we're talking about, but because there was the drasha of this pasuk Beitzei Berech, so the Braisa brings other drashas. So Rabbi Eliezer says, Harei shegazasa. What this pasuk is referring to is something else. A person that stole a saw shel chitim. He stole a certain amount of wheat. Tachana, he ground it, and then he had flour, he made va'afa, and he baked bread with this. And then v'hifresh mimena challah. And after he baked the bread, he separates challah. This is a little bit unusual. Usually you separate the challah before you bake the bread, but sometimes you separate after, and that's what it says here in this braisa. So now, ketzad mevarech, how can he make a bracha on the mitzvah of hafrashas challah? Can't make a bracha. This is stolen. It's stolen bread. Ein zem mevarech. He can't bench the Eibishter. He can't make a bracha on the mitzvah. Elamanayitz. He's going against the Eibishter. Valzenematz. Regarding this, that the pasuk that we brought before says, "Ubeitseya berech niyetz Hashem." So he's translating. Beitseya means someone that steals. So the Rashi brings the pasuk Beitseya betzas nefesh bailov. It's a term of stealing. Niyetz Hashem. He goes against the Eibishter. That's what it's talking about. Now here, the Gemara brings the example of a person who wants to make the birchas hamitzvah on a frashas challah. But in Rishonim there's a machlokes, and also in Shulchan Aruch there's two opinions whether the same applies also regarding the birchas hanenin. If you steal bread and then you want to make a bracha on it, are you allowed to make a bracha on stolen bread? Some say that it's only by a mitzvah baba aveira, you don't make a birchas mitzvah on it. But birchas hanenin, the fact is you're having hana, you have to make a bracha on that. But others say no, even birchas hanenin you should not make a bracha either. Another opinion in what the pasuk Beitzei Berech means. It actually refers to Yehuda. Shenema, the pasuk says, and this is actually in this week's parsha. So it says, Yehuda. In last week's parsha, Yehuda said the lechav to his brothers when they threw Yosef into the pit. Ma betza kinare gesachino. That what are we going to gain by killing our brother? And what did he say instead? Instead of spilling blood, what should we do? Let's throw him into the pit. So now, what Rav Meir says is, anybody that praises Yehuda for what he did to his brother Yosef, you're making a mistake. You're not really supposed to praise him for what he did. You're really going against what the Eibishter wanted he should do. Regarding this, that it says, and the reason for this is because really Yehuda should have be'emes saved Yosef. He had the authority. His brothers would have listened to him. He could have really saved him and brought him back home to his father. And he didn't. He threw him into the pit and then he sold him down to Mitzrayim. So therefore, really what Yehuda did was not good. So therefore, anyone that praises Yehuda for saving Yosef's life is making a mistake. Is Beitzei Berech Niyetz Hashem. Okay, huh? Yeah. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says, going back now to Pshara, should judges make a compromise when there's a judgment? So Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha argues with Rabbi Eliezer ben Rabbi Yosef Glili, and he says, mitzvah leftzaya. It's actually a mitzvah to make a compromise when Balidinim come to the Bezdin. This is how we paskin. First thing, Bezdin has to try to make a compromise. Shenama, because the pasuk says by David HaMelech, emes u'mishpat shalom shiftu b'sharechem, that truth Second, where's this pasuk? This is sorry. There's a later pasuk of David Amel. This is actually a pasuk in Scharia where it says, "Emes, truth, mishpat, justice, and shalom, peace. Shiftu b'shareichem. You should judge in your gates." So now the question is, it says here mishpat and shalom, justice and peace. V'haloi, how do these two go together? B'makim sheyesh mishpat, if you're paskening with justice, ain't shalom. There's no peace because in such a case, one person's chayiv and one person is pater. So the one that is pater is happy, but the person that's chayiv is not happy. So there's no peace between these two people. Or b'makim sheyesh shalom, and in the place where you make a compromise, or the place where both walk out happy and there's peace between them, ain't mishpat. That means that there's no real judgment here. Ella, so what is this pasuk talking about? What's a judgment where there's peace between both balidinim? This is a compromise. So you see here in this pasuk it says, how should you judge? Mishpat v'shalom, shiftu b'sharechem. So you see there's a mitzvah to judge with a compromise. By David HaMelech it also says, "Vayihi David Isa Mishpat Tzedakah." That David HaMelech, when he paskened, he did with justice and with tzedakah, with righteousness. But here again, you can ask the same thing. If it's justice, so there's no tzedakah. It's not tzedakah. The one that's chayiv has to pay. Tzedakah, but if there's tzedakah, then ain't mishpat. Then it's not justice. What's the combination of the two? This is a compromise when each one is walking out happy. And over here also there's the inyan of tzedakah, that the one that really owed more money, so the other one is forgiving him part of it, and that's at tzedakah. By accepting that compromise, you're doing tzedakah with this person that really owed you more. That's the way Rabbi Yeshua Karcha teaches this.
But the one who feels he had to give up something, gave up something.
Yeah, true. And that's the tzedakah. That is the tzedakah that he gave up. The tzedakah goes in the one that gave up.
Yeah. It's short of the tzedakah.
Yeah. Okay, now the Gemara here interjects this braisa and explains what the continuation of the braisa is. So the Gemara says, "Asal l'tanakama." What we're about to see in the continuation of the braisa is explaining the pasuk that we just quoted by David HaMelech, which is a source that you should make a compromise. According to Rabbi Eliezer ben Rabbi Yosef Glili, it's asar. So how does he translate this pasuk? So the Braisa continues and says, "Dones adin," when you paskin a din, zika es a zakai, and you will mezaka the one that is zakai, v'chayev es a chayev, and the one that's obligated to pay his chayev. And then what David HaMelech, this is by David HaMelech, and he saw shenis chayev ani mamin, that a very poor individual is now obligated to pay. And he doesn't have what to pay. What did David HaMelech do? So David HaMelech did not make any compromise. He paskin according to what the Torah said. But if he saw that the person doesn't have what to pay, he went and paid for the poor person. He paid from his house. Zeh mishpat u'tzedakah. This is what it means in the pasuk when it says here that there was both a mishpat and tzedakah. Mishpat lezeh. It was a mishpat because he paskened according to what the justice or what the halacha demands, that this person is going to get what he deserves. But a tzedakah lezeh. He did a tzedakah for the poor person that David HaMelech paid from his own pocket. He paid from his own pocket. That's the way Rabbi Eliezer ben Rabbi Yosef Glili translates his pasuk. So you don't have a source over here that Bezdin should make up shara. Okay, the next few lines is just a repetition of the same point. So going back to the Braisa. So here the Gemara also interjects and gives a little introduction to the continuation of the Braisa. It says the Gemara Kashele Rebbe. Rebbe did not accept this pshat that we just brought regarding what it says by David HaMelech, that David HaMelech himself paid from his own pocket for the poor person. His question was, if so, hi l'chol amai. In the pasuk over there it says that David HaMelech did mishpat u'tzedakah, and the continuation of the pasuk is l'chol amai, to all of the people. Why does it say l'chol amai? La'aniyim mibayalei. According to what you're saying here, the tzedakah is not for everybody. The tzedakah was in the din Torah, there were the two. For one it was mishpat, and for the other, for the poor person that can't pay, for him it's tzedakah. So why does it say l'chol amai? Elo, so therefore the Braisa says, Rebbe has a different shot. Rebbe Yomer, afa pishalei shilim yitoich beisai. Even in a case where David HaMelech did not pay from his home, zeu mishpat u'tzedakah. You could still translate the meaning of the pasuk of a mishpat and tzedakah. Why is it mishpat and tzedakah? Every time you paskin a pitayra with a justice, it's mishpat and tzedakah. Why? Mishpat lezeh. It's justice for this individual that got his payment. So he was served justice. He was able to get his payment. U'tzedakah lezeh, and then it's a tzedakah for the other person. So mishpat lezeh shehech salei mimaynai. It's a mishpat for this person that his money was given back to him. U'tzedakah lezeh. What's the tzedakah for the other person? How are you doing him a tzedakah? How are you doing him a righteousness if you're forcing him to pay? The righteousness is shahoitzik zelim mitoch yadei. You're taking money that's not his. You're taking money that he was holding on to, that now you know is exela, and you're taking it away from him. That's you're doing him what's stuck that he shouldn't have exela in his hands. That's what the pasuk is talking about. So according to Rebbe, it's also not any a compromise. Another opinion of Shimon ben Asiyah, Shnayim shebol lefanecha ledin. Two people that come to you to paskin a din. So should you make a compromise or not? So according to his opinion, he says, before you hear their argument, what it's about, or even after you heard their argument, but it's not clear to you who is more right than the other. You just heard the facts, but you have no idea who's more right. Then you're allowed to tell them, go out and make a compromise. However, once you heard their words, and you already have an idea who's right and who's wrong, you're not allowed to tell them go out and make a compromise because you see who's right and who's wrong. So why should the one that's right lose out? And the pasuk he says for this is Shenema. The pasuk says if you want to pater the water, meaning you want to have them go out and to throw out the judgment like water that flows out and not take care of it. So then it has to be Reishis Modin in the beginning of the argument, before you see the details to know who's right and who's wrong. Before it's revealed to you what really is going on in this argument, who's right and who's wrong, nitaish, then you could let go of it. Which means kaidim shenizgala hariv. The word nizgala, it's written with an ayin, but the ayin is interchangeable with a hey. So before the riv, what the argument is about is revealed to you, and you don't know who's right, who's wrong, you can let it go, and you can say go make a compromise. But shenizgala hariv, once it's clear to you in this judgment who's right and who's wrong, you can't let go of it anymore. Rish Lakish, or the Gersa here is Rabbi Yeshua ben Lakish, or Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish, different Gersas here. Another opinion about this, Omar, he said, also similar to what Rabbi Shimon ben Asiyah says. Shnayim shebol ledin, two people that come for judgment. Now, echad rach, one is a soft person, ve'echad kasha, and the other one is a very tough person. Now, so you have a problem taking this din Torah, because you know you're going to deal here with a very tough person. Now, so before you hear their words, or after you heard their arguments, but you don't know who's right and who's wrong, you see who you're dealing with here, you're allowed to tell them, I'm not interested in getting involved in this, because what would happen is, he's afraid, Shemin is chayiv chazak. Maybe the person that's a tough person, he will be the one that's going to be obligated to pay. And then, and now he's going to come and annoy you. He's going to, the judge that made this person that's a tough person chayiv, he's going to come and suffer from him. So before you hear the arguments, or before you know who's right is wrong, you're allowed to let go of this. However, once you hear their arguments, and you know about who's right, now you can't say to them, I'm not taking this judgment. Because the pasuk says, Loi saguru mipnei ish. You should not, and the simple pshat of saguru is, you should not be afraid of any person when you paskin a din Torah. Rabbi Shua ben Karcha says, Minayim, from where do we know the Talmud, sheyesh lifnei rabbi? Student that's sitting in front of his teacher, and his teacher is the one that's the dayan paskining the din Torah, and you're a student that's sitting there and listening, and you see in the arguments that are being said, schos lani, you can see a merit for the poor person in this din Torah, and v'chayv l'asher, and you see a reason to say that the rich one, that's more powerful and so on, is something that will say that he's the one that's obligated. So minayin, from where do I know? That student sitting there should not be quiet if you see something that's true here. So he shouldn't say to himself, well, my teacher is here, so why am I going to speak up in front of my teacher? Or you'll say to yourself, this rich person, I'm going to speak up something that's against this rich person. So no, you have to speak up, you can't be quiet. Shenema, the pasuk says, Loi saguru mipnei ish. Do not be afraid from anybody. Rab Chanan also said a similar thing. He says that the word sagura means something else. Do not hold back your words for any person. The word saguru is also malashon oiger, where you're gathering in. So don't gather in, don't hold back your words because of you don't want to offend this rich person here and then take away from his honor. Now another thing the Braisa goes on to say, V'yiyu edim yedim. When edim, witnesses come by a bezdin and they're testifying about something, the edim should know esmiyein meidin, who they're testifying against, meaning that when they testify in bezdin, they should consider it as if they're testifying for the Eibishter. in front of who they're testifying. And who in the future would would punish them if they're not testifying accurately. Shenema, the pasuk says, that the two people that have an argument, that they come and they stand. Where do they stand? Lifnei Hashem. When they come to Bezdin, they're coming in front of the Eibishter. So this is what Eidim that are testifying in the Din Torah have to know. And similar, v'yiyu dayanim yadim. Judges should also know as mi ein danin who it is that they're judging. When they're judging two yidden, two people, they should consider it as if they're judging the Eibishter himself. And v'lifnei mi ein danin, and in front of who they're judging. Umi yasadli parem, and who will punish them if they don't judge properly. Shenem, the pasuk says, "Lekim nitzav badas kel v'gaimer," that the judges they stand badas kel by the Eibishter. V'chem b'yeshafotu oime v'yeme al hashayftim ru'u mata maisim. See what you're doing. Ki lo la'adam tishpetu. You're not just judging people. Ki la'Hashem. You're judging the Eibishter. So therefore, you have to be very careful when you're taking a din Torah and you're paskening. Now the Brisa goes on to say, if so, Shema Yema Dayan. If so, a judge will say, Ma'ali b'tzarazeh. If this is such a severe matter that when I'm judging the Eibishter himself, so why should I get involved in this? Even if I make a small mistake, it's a really big deal. So Talmud Laimar, therefore the pasuk goes on to say, V'imochem bedvar mishpat, that I'm with you in this judgment. And that what that means is that ein ledayan ela masha ein avrayis, that a judge has to do his best to follow what his eyes see, what he understands, and that's how he paskins, but he has to paskin based on what he sees accurately. And then the Eibishter will help him that he should be able to paskin. Atkan is the Brisa. Okay, now here the Gemara is going to go on and to explain all the different opinions and the details that there's here in the Brisa.